I have these friends, Dan and Sheila. They're podcast hosts.
Welcome to Profiling Criminal Minds. I'm Dan.
And I'm Dr. Redmond.
And thankfully, Profiler was nice enough to keep a story going so we can talk about the thing we missed last week. That one's on us. We were so excited to talk about Jack and his roses and his murdering a nun that we neglected to talk about Bailey's entire plot in that second episode, which is Bailey's a bad father. Yeah, it's the plot.
Well, he argues in this episode that he did try to fight for joint custody.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that as we get there. But the previous episode, he has to pick his daughter up in jail.
Oh, we did. Did we talk about it afterwards?
Yeah, we talked about it afterwards.
Oh, that's right. We didn't talk about it on the show.
Saying. We talked about how we missed it. Yeah, he has to pick up his daughter so they establish in the scene that he feels like he's failing his children. Right, we established that when he's seeing his lady, and we get a very concrete example of that in the second episode last week. You know, the Die Hard episode. Because we get a subplot about him having to rescue his daughter from jail because she's hanging out with a group of casually criminal punks.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, there you go. How could my daughter do this? He thinks to himself. Well, that's the only way she could possibly get your attention, Bailey.
Yeah.
You abandoned your family to do this Law and Order thing, so how else could she conceivably get your attention other than by putting herself into the system? Like, that's just, come on. This ain't, you don't need Sam to figure this one out.
Or you shouldn't need
you
Sam
should not
to
need
figure.
Sam. He does, though. He does go to Sam this episode. You're right.
Yes.
To try and figure out what the hell he's supposed to do about his daughter. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Communicate with her in a respectful fashion, maybe.
Spend some time with her.
Spend any time at all with her.
You drop her off at school in the morning, and you're going to pick her up from. You weren't even going to pick her up from school after school was finished.
Nope. But yeah, that's the plot this week. He's at school. She's at school in a new private school he sent her to, and she immediately cuts class, and he has to go to Julian McMahon to say, okay, you were a cop in this town. Where do kids hang out? And again, that's a nice touch.
That school.
Yeah, from that school. But specifically, where do kids hang out in this town? Because why would he know that? He moved here for a job from Baltimore, right? He was an FBI headquarters kind of guy, and he moved to Atlanta. He's not from Atlanta. And it's a nice
and as we
touch.
find out.
Yeah.
We find out that's going to be interesting in the second episode.
Oh yeah, no, the stuff with Julian McMahon.
Yeah.
Oof, that was a fun one. But anyway, we'll get there. I did not see that coming at all.
No.
So what happens is he goes and he drags his daughter away from where the bad kids are, and he confronts the fact that he's got to start opening up with his daughter about the situation because he fought for custody, we are told. Like, had a lawyer, fought for custody, went to a judge, but they kept the children out of it completely.
Yes.
So the daughter doesn't actually know that. So, yeah.
And the child was she was 12.
She was 12, so you'd think she would be old enough, but I guess they literally did keep the children out of the custody stuff.
Well, the funny thing is that in Ontario, legally, they can't.
Oh, I know, but this is Baltimore.
Yeah.
So
this is Baltimore.
Yeah. I assume it's a different situation than
Oh,
Canada.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but no,
Baltimore, Maryland.
Maryland, exactly.
In the States, they don't want to
involve the children in these decisions.
Well, for heaven's sakes, heaven forbid that the children should think that there's anything wrong with the way their parents raised them.
Well, I mean, heaven forbid the kids think that they have any rights or are indeed full human beings.
Yes.
God, no, children are property. That's how it works in America. Come on.
Yep.
But yes, Bailey is going to try to do things better. Now, in the second plot, we're doing all the side plots this week before we get to the the end point. So in the second plot, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Is George gay?
That would be what I would call the implication.
Because, I mean, we talked on Wise Guy about, I'm blanking on his name. You know, the guy who sits at the computer at the OCB. I'm blanking on his name. Yes. Mark Cermak. Okay, that took me too long. Right? Everything about him is coded as he's gay.
Yeah.
Like, they could not be clearer about this, but it's never acknowledged, it's never said, it never comes up in the show. And as we talked about when we were talking about Wise Guy, it was the 80s, it was the 90s, it was a risk having a gay person on your show, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's the kind of thing that could get a show canceled. Well into the 2000s. I mean, My Beloved Wonderfalls, you know, I mean, it wasn't canceled before it came out, but like, Brian Fuller is like, the main character's sister plot line is that she's going to be gay, coming out as gay and figuring out that she's gay. And then Fox was like, then we're not going to promote the show. We're not going to tell anybody the show exists and it gets no ratings. We have a contract that says we have to air it, but we're not going to tell anyone the show exists or market it in any way, shape, or form. And when nobody watches it, we'll cancel it as quickly as we can. And that was the 2000s, right? That was like 2003 or so.
Well, and you ask us why Action was canceled?
Yeah, exactly. Right. But so I know. Well, that's the lesson. Do the stuff on HBO. It's safer. Don't try to do that stuff on a network show. But so my question is, watching this show, is he gay? And I feel like they might be doing the same thing that Wise Guy did with Mark, where if you're paying attention and you want us to know, you will know. Right.
Well, and the very fact that he's so upset about his friend. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that they're pushing, but this is still an end of the 90s show.
Yeah.
And
gay people don't exist in fiction.
Well,
in American fiction.
Okay, I'm just trying to think. So Ellen came out in the 80s.
No.
The 90s.
No, that was the end of the 90s.
That was okay. Ellen came out in the end of the 90s, and that practically tanked her career.
It did tank her career.
Yeah. She has reinvented herself. The world is willing to accept her now as a lesbian.
Well, they were, and then they found out she's a terrible human being, and now they're not willing to accept her again.
Yes, but that's another issue.
Unrelated situation. It's an unrelated issue.
You know, I mean, if everybody found out that Oprah treated her staff as badly as
Ellen did, yeah. Who knows how they feel about Oprah? Oof.
Yes.
But it has nothing to do with the fact that she's a lesbian. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, no, that was, so, but the first, and I'm just trying to think, and Will and Grace
again,
was
like
in the
2000s.
Yeah. And, so it started to become more commonplace, but you can look at things.
It might have started in 99, but we'd have to
look at the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
They were not willing to say that, what's his face?
Koothrappali.
Right? Koothrappali was
everything
gay.
About that show suggests that character should have been gay.
Yeah, well, his parents think he's gay.
Yes, everyone does. And they're just, no, it's always just going to be a joke. Right? It's always just going to be a joke. This character should just be gay, and that should be the issue with his character. But no.
No, I mean, that's interesting. So I think this falls under that too. It's clear that he and this guy have a special relationship.
This is what I'm getting at. Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's clear even before he goes in the second time and there's the robbery.
Yes. That is the vibe I was getting. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. I'm glad we're on the same page about this.
You're not
seeing it from nowhere.
No, I think that it is like the Mark situation in Wise Guy.
Where they might never say it, but the filmmakers know what they're doing.
And remember that this is still cops.
Yeah, it is.
They are still cops. And as we see all the time, there's a problem there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
And let's face it. I mean, it has been very brave now of Criminal Minds, and they haven't gotten any blowback. Thank you.
Yeah.
For the Rebecca.
I know. And Tara
storyline, and
we'd always joke about how like there's literally no gay people on Criminal Minds.
Yeah, you can go and read for the first 15 seasons, and we talked about it in our meta discussion of Criminal Minds as a whole.
Yeah,
and it was something they didn't do, so they certainly have shifted gears on that, which is good. But here it's understandable. It's still the 90s. Okay. For heaven's sakes, I think it's still illegal to be gay in England.
God, it might have been 97. No. Well, 97, I feel like maybe by then, but no, it's close. It's
close because the 80s, of course, it was still a problem. You could go to jail.
Absolutely.
Yes, it was still. Had been.
Not a lot of people did go to jail.
It must have been in the 90s it must have still gone into the 90s because because I watched some of these cop shows and they're having a really hard time because when they were in school, I mean, all of it, they were not allowed some of the governments are trying to do now.
The
North
Florida
America.
Don't say gay stuff. That was the actual law, right? In the UK. Like you could not, if you went to school, you would not hear that gay people existed.
Yeah.
Your entire school career. It would never come up because
and I understood that in the 50s. I understood that in the 50s.
It was the 80s, man.
You know, in the mid 60s, maybe.
I don't want to play this card, but like David Bowie existed. You're going to pretend there's no such thing as gay people?
Elton John.
John existed. David Bowie existed.
But what was funny about that, is that there were so many people that, I mean, once you got the idea in your head of someone being gay, all you had to do was go, okay, Liberace.
Yeah, it's right there.
It was right there. And it was only in detective shows and stuff like that you saw gay people, and then it was always negative.
Exactly. And so
they were always the slimy.
We are going to, I know, the creeps. Yeah, the creeps who were,
hanging around. Well, what's his face? Who played the murderer? Peter Lorre.
Peter Lorre and M, yeah.
Peter Lorre
we all remember the Maltese Falcon.
Yes, and then Casablanca with Gutman.
Has anyone ever been coded harder gay than him in the Maltese Falcon?
And Gutman in Casablanca.
Yeah, same exact thing. Coded. It's Sidney Greenstreet being coded the exact same way. No, and so I think we're going to comfortably say, if they decide to just loudly announce that George isn't gay, we're going to assume that they got some pushback from the network, because everything about this character, I had wondered it before, and this episode is the thing that made me want to talk about it.
Yeah,
because it's pretty clear from this episode the intention is he's gay. Also, he's one of those guys that the FBI enslaved. We find out.
Like Garcia.
Exactly like Garcia. And not the only time we'll be talking about Criminal Minds this week.
No.
Interestingly, but yes, just like Garcia, right? It's kind of intense. So, all right. And the jackpot this week is they do a further search of, now that the nun is dead, they do a further search of the nunnery / orphanage. And it turns out, because of this focus on the roses, that there are body parts in the rose beds. Oh. That's part of how he was fertilizing the roses.
And that's why he had these wonderful roses.
Award-winning roses. And so they say, would he kill someone just to fertilize his rose? And they're like, he's crazy. And it turns out, no, he didn't. It's the trucker. We find out. Remember the trucker who picked up Angel all those months ago? Yeah, that's who's in the rose beds.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yeah, so it's nice that they followed up on that. We did find out for sure that she was dead.
She was dead, and she's who ended up in the rose beds. And then, because Jack thinks it's important to, get closure for these things, he stops by at the end of the episode and plants roses over the head nun's grave so that now she can fertilize these roses. Oh my God. I mean, I'm sure she's in a coffin, Jack, so that's not going to happen, but still, metaphorically, I understand.
Yes.
Metaphorically, I understand what he's doing, but Jesus Christ, Jack.
And she was only 60.
Oh, I know. She seemed older to me. But then again, people used to look older than they look now. Like, you watch the Golden Girls and you're like, oh, I'm older than the Golden Girls when the Golden Girls started. And that doesn't seem sane to me. Yeah. You know, but that's technically true. I think I'm older than the character Rose was. I'm older than the character Blanche was in the first season of Golden Girls, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But it's also true. All right. So let's get to the actual plot of the episode, which I'll say it is the craziest killer we have yet had on the show. Like, I think by a wide margin. Is that fair to say?
Okay.
This is the truck.
I watched this.
This is the truck.
Oh, the truck. Oh, the truck who keeps playing. Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder, you know what they didn't. I wonder if the music that he was playing was what was on the radio when his parents were in the car accident.
It's definitely what they're saying. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Because, you know, they're not going to randomly pick a song from the 60s for no reason.
Yeah. You know, and you wonder about that in the beginning.
Oh yeah, why they're picking this song, and then you find out what his deal is. So this guy's deal is,
it was a sad.
It's incredibly
sad story, but it does continue. Well, what else would create something like this?
Yeah, no, it's childhood trauma. Every week, it's childhood trauma.
And back in the 70s and the 80s, to deal with childhood trauma was almost an impossibility.
Well, no, but we see his foster mother, who is completely checked out of the concept of helping the kid.
Well,
they go to see the foster mother, and she's like, "Oh yeah, he was a weird one, right? You know, hey, if
but she's also the one that says that if he's in trouble, I'm not surprised because she talks about the trauma and, you know, says
but my point is, what she says is, but it's not unusual for these kids to be screwed up. I mean, if their lives hadn't gone wrong, they wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And it's just like, she is running an assembly line for screwed up kids.
Well,
like,
yes, but the system, I mean, at least she has, you see, I'm reading this probably slightly different. She does have some empathy for them, but there is nothing that can be done because it's the system. And the kid was lucky when he ended up in that foster home because he'd been in a foster home before.
Yeah. It wasn't his first
an earlier
foster
one.
home. Yeah.
No. And once they come to her, she at least seems to take care of them.
She decently she makes sure they're fed, she makes sure they're housed, and then they, you know, get out the door when they're 18, and she never hears from them again because she provided no emotional support or comfort whatsoever. Well, because she wasn't a parent, she was running the hotel they lived in.
Yeah, basically, you know. Yeah. Yes, and I think that you know, and of course she's doing laundry, and it looks like she's pretty much alone doing all of this.
No, I mean, this is the kind of foster parent situation where I'm not saying they're all foster parents like this by any stretch of the imagination, but this is her job. Her job is running a hotel for troubled children because the state pays her to run a hotel for troubled children. And that is as much thought as she puts into it. And yeah, she's sad sometimes, but if she got sad about all of these kids, how could she function? So she has to emotionally disconnect.
There's the problem.
Yeah.
And foster parents who do take in children and become emotionally involved and then decide they want to adopt the children can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Half the time. You know, I mean,
I understand how she ended up like this.
Yes.
But this is where she ended up. I'm not saying
But what I'm saying about the fact that there wasn't any, it's not like she could have gotten the child psychological counseling.
Because there was no funding for that.
There was no funding. She doesn't get paid enough.
No.
You know, she gets paid enough to feed and clothe them and make sure they have the school, run the house and everything else, right? And So yeah, I mean, it is an indictment. Ultimately, I don't think they meant to kind of do that.
Without criticizing her, but
no,
you know,
but
they are like,
it's
a bad system.
Of course, it's a bad system.
And but the show is very clear-eyed about how, like, she's a perfectly acceptable, you know, hotel manager, but that's it. This kid was just left alone to figure it out for himself, and he ended up warped because no child could figure out for themselves what happened here.
Well, and we've seen this story more than once.
Oh God, yeah.
Of course. You know, of these childhood trauma things that are not dealt with, and then they just get completely warped.
Yeah, they metastasize into, you know, a twisted fetish. And so his way of killing people His way of killing people is he has a truck and he encourages people to try to pass him. And the person tries to pass him, but then he speeds up to trap them next to him, and then they just drive along, you know, right next to each other until a car hits them going the other way. And it's a nasty road full of cliffs and mountains, so he knows that when they swerve off the road, it's going to be bad. And the way he knows that is, that's what happened to him as a child.
Yes.
It was the first trucking road, right, before the road he's doing this on. And this is a nice touch. They, like, try and figure out why he's only doing attacks on this road. And it turns out it was an early interstate that was basically just for trucks. And so they're like, okay,
it was the trucking. Yeah. It's like, it's a 2-lane trucking road, just like Highway 17 was Highway 17 is still the only trucking road.
Yeah.
Basically. Well, there's Highway, funnily enough, it's Highway 11.
Yes.
That goes up north and over. Technically, Highway 17 is shorter, but it has switchbacks on it. It is a dangerous road still. A lot of it is flat, but there are parts of it that are so dangerous.
Yeah.
Still. But
it's that kind of road.
Yeah, it's
of course,
that
the difference
kind of
with Highway 17, it is literally the only road in Canada. Which, again, we've talked about before, I'm sure, but it sounds like a joke, but literally there is one road you can get onto in Nova Scotia. And if you drive on that road, you will end up in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
And it's and the interesting thing about it is you can make the argument that there's just one road that crosses the entire nation. And there's only one that does it. It's not like America where there's a whole bunch of interstates that stretch from one end to the other. And Highway 17 is Ontario's part of it. It changes its name as it goes from place to place. And the interesting thing about it is this one road that connects all of Canada does not go to Toronto, our biggest city.
Yeah. That's what's it goes through Ottawa.
Yeah, it goes through Ottawa, the capital. It does not go down to Toronto, the biggest city. So there you go. The one thing we've got that Toronto doesn't. But yeah, so this it's not. It's
called the Trans-Canada Highway because it does,
because it literally does go across the entire country.
And it changes its name and its number. It's province. Not its name, its number.
Every new province calls it something different, but it's the same Trans-Canada Highway.
Yeah.
So on that South Park episode where they talk about how there's only one road in Canada, that's not entirely right. That's not entirely a joke. That's actually a well-observed fact more than anything else.
Yes, and it was started and finished before Newfoundland and Labrador
were actually
joined Confederation. And it was a
fact.
twisting.
Here's a fun fact. Newfoundland only joined Canada because they ran out of money. And they ran out of money because they they sent troops to World War II, which they couldn't afford to do. And so they just ran out of money helping out with World War II. And that's why they joined Confederation. But yeah, I still have Newfoundland money. And
there are still people who don't...
who aren't super happy about it.
About the fact that they joined Confederation.
But that's an argument from 70 years ago. That's not something we need to talk about today.
No.
So yeah, it's actually not that hard of a case for them to solve. Oh God, you're right. It's not that hard of a case to solve, really, because fundamentally it's just about figuring out this is such a specific, and Sam's right, this is such an unbelievably specific thing he wants to do, right? That you've just got to profile the right guy. They have other good leads, like he steals the radios and some pieces of tech out of the cars he crashes, and the cars he hits are always classic 60s vehicles. So he fixes up the parts and he sells them to a specialist shop. And they find out that his a specialist junkyard, and a homeless guy who lives at the junkyard sees this guy living in his truck, and he says that the guy just never leaves the truck. Yeah. Right? He call him the bug man because he wears a motorcycle helmet all the time, so it looks like the head of an insect. Right? Which is a nice touch. And he never leaves the truck. He lives in the truck. He's constantly driving around. And here's where we get to the most preposterous thing about the episode, because we always talk on Criminal Minds about how every killer is a spree killer, right? It's like he's always decompensating, and they're always like killing one person every day to escalate things. Whereas this episode of television takes place over weeks, because all of the George stuff takes place over weeks. And we'll talk about specifically what happened in the George plot line in a minute, because I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
But here's the problem with this plot line, right? And it is a problem with the plot line. We're asked to believe that he's able to kill someone every 10 days. And he does every 10 days. The 3rd, the 10th, the 3rd, the 13th, and the 23rd are when he kills, right?
Yeah. 3 times a month.
3 times a month. And we are asked to believe that riding this completely random highway.
This is a big honking truck.
No, but not only that, right? This random highway that used to exist only for trucks. But anyway, that 3 times a month and only killing on those specific days, he is able to find a man and a woman who are demographically similar to his parents in age and race, right? Driving a classic 60s automobile. And he manages to do that 4 different times on those specific days during a window where he does it at night.
And he manages to go to Detroit.
Just come on.
In between.
Well, no, he's got 10 days. He's got 10 days. That's not that. Like, he's got 10 days between. Now, that's not that hard to believe.
Oh, well,
so
come on.
Well, no, but what else
never
is he
mind.
doing with his time? He's doing nothing else with his time. He's just driving the truck around.
Yeah.
But yes, and he's not shipping because he's keeping the dead bodies in his refrigerated truck. Oh my God. But yeah,
and then yes, and then never mind. I mean, I just thought he doesn't ship anything. He brings the parts from the car, and he actually shines them up and cleans them.
He makes it look like they're new because
they're brand
he's
new
trying to recreate his childhood.
And they're prime.
Mm-hmm.
They're prime. He makes a lot of money that way.
Oh yeah, because people are always looking for parts from these vehicles.
For these vehicles.
To maintain these classic cars.
Particularly,
the idea that on this stretch of road he could find, right?
That many people.
That many people who are men and women driving in the middle of the night in a 60s automobile. No, like, come on. That's preposterous.
Oh, and by the way.
Please.
Yeah. No. That is preposterous. I found a lot of the whole thing. It's just, it's a fascinating thing. But I think that he passes these people.
Yeah.
And then he goes.
Turns around.
And he keeps going ahead of them. And then I think the only thing that I would say to yours, he doesn't sort of box them in to keep them forever, because anybody who's driving would just go back behind him. If you're driving that much and this guy is such an idiot that he's not going to let you pass, you just get behind him and you just follow him.
Yeah.
I mean, of all of these people,
how does he ensure that there's a car coming the other way?
But he's so high up that with the hills, he can see when a car is coming, probably. And
so he tries to
a great distance. Yeah. So then he slows down. He turns on his flasher, telling them that they can pass.
Yeah. So you're right. He doesn't do that. He traps them behind him until he knows there's an car coming the other way. That makes sense.
Yeah. And then he puts on his flasher.
I thought it was a little preposterous, but you're right. Like, he could do that.
That could be done. without any problem.
It's a stretch,
it's
but I'll let them have
finding
that. It's finding these
the
victims.
finding the
That is
couple
so
with
ridiculous.
the classic car that's similar to the one that his parents were killed in is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
The one thing I will say about the profile is they try to make us impressed with Sam's ability by saying that by asking why doesn't he do this on a major road, rather than this tiny road where it would be harder to find victims. And she says that there must be something important about that specific road. And I think that's a bad guess, simply because if he were doing this on a major he needs time with his victims.
Yeah.
And if he's doing this on a major interstate,
No.
another car would drive up after the accident. So, no.
The interstates in the United States are filled with cars and trucks.
All the time.
All the time. So that I thought that was stupid too.
Yeah. Also, they're often 4 lanes, meaning he literally couldn't do this.
No.
He literally couldn't do the thing he does. No, he needs an isolated 2-lane road that almost no one is on. And the problem there is that, the problem there is if almost nobody is on it, then how is he possibly finding these victims?
Yeah, well, that's
But
it.
I mean, it's a problem at the core of the episode that there's no way to fix.
Yeah, there's no way to fix that. You just have to let them
get away with it.
Yeah, because there's no way, because if you, I grew up before most of the interstates. Yeah. So everything we drove on was these Highway 11s.
Yeah.
Right?
2-lane winding
and you can
roads.
still find them in the United States. Of course, they still exist. But the problem is all of the businesses on those, like the diners, there used to be diners, I could tell you places where, and you would be able to stop. And so there were diners, there were, so is he sitting in a vacant lot somewhere and waiting for someone to drive? But how does he necessarily? Yeah. But, but then it's all these disparate places that he's finding people and killing them.
Yeah.
Because initially, right, it looks, this is a weird one. And then they find out that there are other ones. They end up finding, I think, 5.
All in different states.
The only commonality is the date. And it's only when they put the map and then they realize it's all the same highway.
Yeah, that it used to be one highway.
And then they go and they, and then you do the backtrack.
Yeah, and what is the significance of this highway and so on and so forth.
Yeah, but even then what his parents were doing on that highway and what another trucker was doing on that highway, because it's only goes back to the 80s.
Yeah.
Or something, the early 80s, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because he's still only in his 20s.
Or late 70s. It could be late 70s because I think he was 3 years old or 4 years old.
Yeah.
So it could be late 70s because he could be in his late 20s. So I think you could easily make it mid to late 20s.
Yeah, but even then there were, the interstates were just in the 70s. The interstates were I-75 was pretty much finished by then. Because,
absolutely. But I mean, we're just expected to believe that maybe they were the last fatality on this particular trucking highway.
Yeah, something like that.
That part I'll let them get away with. The part that I just have to call them out for is the preposterous that they're able to find all of these people, that he's able to find all of this incredibly specific victimology on this incredibly small, not well-traveled road.
Yeah.
I mean, those poor cheerleaders coming back from a cheer competition going the other way. Oh, yeah. Damn.
I tell you, the money
they spent on this show. I know.
Tell you.
The money they spent on this show.
I mean, to do that, because that is not, there's no CGI, guys.
No, they drove a car off a cliff and they blew it up.
Yep.
They're not driving cars off of cliffs and blowing them up on Criminal Minds. It's crazy.
No, it's I mean, I'm just watching these girls and going, okay, that's where they stopped the shot.
Yeah.
And got the girls out, and then they got the stuntman in. to still drive the car, and he drives it and gets himself out of it before it rolls down and blows up. Oh my God.
It's a crazy shot. It's a crazy shot.
It's no wonder that stunt men, for the most part, there were very few stunt women even in the 90s.
Yeah.
Got hurt so
often. I know. All of these car stunts. Jeez. Well, they didn't get killed that much because again, they're very good at their jobs, but they do get hurt.
Yeah.
All right. So next, we've got George's plotline, which we're going to touch on briefly, which I thought was just fantastic.
I thought that
he's going to hang out with his friends at the local video shop, and they're talking about hacking because his friends are hackers too.
Yeah.
And hacking, of course, is how he ended up enslaved by the FBI.
Yeah.
And then when he goes back, a guy is robbing the place, and he is a vicious criminal who is robbing the place. Vicious neighborhood criminal who puts a gun to his head and pulls the trigger, and it doesn't go off. With Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I was just
wow.
It jammed.
And it jammed. And that's the wrong word to use. I think when the writer was writing it, they were imagining an automatic.
Yeah.
Revolvers don't actually jam. They just have
there wasn't a bullet. Maybe there wasn't a bullet in it.
I think there probably wasn't a bullet in it.
That's what I thought until later on. The guy says it jammed. Somebody says it jammed, but
everybody says it's jammed, but they don't know. They weren't there. He didn't even see the gun. He got hit over the head, and then there was a gun pointed to him.
When I was watching it, it was like he didn't have any bullets in that chamber.
I think he just didn't have any bullets in the gun. I think he was just trying to rob the place and scare people. But then when he's begging for his life later, he doesn't say that. And I feel like he should have said that.
Yeah.
But that's, we can debate why that gun didn't go off. But the point is, the gun didn't go off. But he's horrifically traumatized by being a victim of violence. And everyone completely understands him being horrifically traumatized by being a victim of violence.
Yeah.
It is a nightmarish thing what just happened.
Yep.
Like it is
He almost died. If that gun
almost died.
had a bullet in it,
he'd be dead. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? And they know who it is. But he is a local criminal, and the guys at his friend is his head is so badly imaged he didn't see anything, and the guy who runs the shop, who had his jaw broken, right, is too afraid to say anything.
Yeah.
And so George goes to Julian McMahon and is just like, "Can you get me a gun? You see, I'm not really in the FBI, so I don't have a gun. So I would like to get a gun, so I can just kill this guy."
Yeah. Now, you are saying his intention. He's a little more subtle about it, but
not a lot more subtle.
No. He needs a gun.
He needs a gun, and Julian McMahon won't get it for him. And as he says, asking me this question is illegal, right? Yes, asking me for a gun is a crime. I'm not going to do anything about it, but maybe think twice about this.
Yes, and the guy says, "So arrest me."
Yeah.
George is very, very, very
upset.
Very upset because his eye. And it would be a problem. I mean, hopefully they did manage to repair the detached retina. Yeah. They did with my sister, so they should be able to.
Oh, yeah.
And it would have been around the same time.
No, but it's not a cheap surgery either, and these guys live in America.
Well, yes, I know, but I'm sure that George will help his friend because he feels so guilty about it anyway.
Yeah.
And the rest of it, yes.
But yeah, we next see George stalking and putting a gun in the face of the robber.
Because the guy has been arrested and let go.
Yeah, he was arrested and let go.
Yeah.
Because again, his friend won't testify. The guy who runs the video store won't testify. So he was let go. So there's no evidence because it's not like he left fingerprints at the scene and George never saw him. He can be confident that's who it is. And he is confident that's who it is. But he never saw him, so he can't do anything about it. And so George goes and he puts a gun in the guy's face and gets ready to kill him. And the guy begs for his life in a fantastic performance. In a scene that's so well acted, you can't believe it.
Yeah. And then the guy sees somebody else, sees somebody and starts screaming and says, "Do something, this guy's going to kill me." And Julian McMahon comes up and stands there.
Not my business.
and stands behind him and says, "Not my business." And he says, "George, do what you want."
Yep.
And George, when push came to shove, George didn't kill him.
No. Yeah. When push comes to shove, he doesn't kill him, and he tells Julian McMahon to bring him in.
Yeah.
You know, and he stepped out.
He gets let go again because he insists. His lawyer says, "Oh, but it was a forced confession."
Exactly. It was a false confession. Like a guy stuck a gun in his face and told him to confess.
Yeah.
You can't really do anything with that. No.
Okay. And the beauty of it, I mean, I thought, oh shit, but the kicker or the twist for us
is that George decides to deal with it his own way.
And he finds out that this guy has got arrest warrants
out in a bunch of different states
all over the country. And nobody's bothered to send the warrants through and stuff like that because it's all been petty crime.
And there's no national database for that kind of thing.
Not at this point. Nope. And but they're going to, of course, execute all the warrants.
Exactly. So he will get picked up for his hundreds of petty crimes.
And as he said, he'll spend the rest of his life in jail.
He could, yeah. Well, and I mean, there's even like bench warrants. Like he has dodged, he has not shown up for court.
Yeah.
Which is the kind of thing that gets you thrown in jail. But you leave the state, and who the hell is gonna maybe
send a bounty hunter after
maybe
you.
It was a mugging, but it's like the state isn't going to send a bounty hunter after you if you leave the state after you don't show up for a warrant. You can just never go back to that state. And I'm sure this guy, whenever he reaches that point, just moves on to the next thing.
State. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a really good subplot because we get into George. We see a lot. We have this idea of what is masculinity if you can't defend yourself. That's an element here, right? And we've got John being incredibly understanding.
Yep.
Right? Just lots of great stuff for the characters to do. Very well handled.
Love this episode.
It's a really good episode.
I mean, that's the funny thing is,
you love this episode.
I know that it's incongruous. There's no way this could happen, but you feel so sorry for this. And that truck is amazing.
Oh,
and he does play Steppenwolf, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He's playing Steppenwolf.
Yeah. And, got your motor running. And I suspect that they were going on a vacation.
Oh,
His
family.
And
they tried to pass a truck and they were in an accident and boom.
Boom.
That's it. And as he said, like his parents died while he was trapped in the back seat waiting for help.
Yeah.
Ooh. It's a rough one. It's a rough episode. All right. Second episode. Now let's more directly talk about Criminal Minds, because Criminal Minds did this episode. Criminal Minds did this episode in their first season.
Weird, isn't it?
I know. And it's not like the show invented the concept of having a mole hunt, but it's weird that both of them did this episode around the same point. Yeah. Because I would have to check this, but I kind of feel like the mole hunt of Criminal Minds might have actually been like episode 18 or something like that. I know it was at the end of the season.
Yeah, with Gideon.
Yeah, right? But the difference is, right, the mole hunt here is like more relevant and the stakes are higher because it's in their unit.
Yeah.
So yeah, the episode opens with an FBI agent who's undercover with the mob getting murdered by the mob.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love is that the FBI has decided to say he was corrupt.
Yeah.
They just put that in. Like, it blows my mind that they just drop in passing that the story is he was a corrupt cop and we're not going to worry too much about the fact that the mob didn't like his information and killed him. Like, they screwed up and one of their people got killed, and the official story is they're going to blame him for getting killed and pretend that he was a corrupt FBI agent so they don't look bad.
however, they also think,
but because
they're going to railroad Bailey.
Oh yeah. But then they're going to railroad Bailey, which we'll get into. But how crazy is it, right? Well, because internally they know there's a mole, right?
Yeah.
But publicly they're going to be like, we're just going to blame this guy. right? And so the FBI can't be held responsible, and we're not going to admit there's a mole publicly, but we know he wasn't corrupt, and we know there was a mole, so we're going to have to do something about this. And the guy who's in charge of the mole hunt is the ex-husband of the woman that Bailey's been sleeping with. So he decides to use this as his opportunity.
Well, he finds no, you've got it kind of.
No, I don't have it backwards.
No, not backwards. No, it's not that. You see Bailey talking to her husband's coming home, and she says, and he said, well, I thought you were separated. Well, he wants to try again. Yeah. And then what happens is that when they see the video feed from Bailey's office, we get that conversation.
Yeah.
And that's when he finds out that his wife has been sleeping with Bailey.
Yes.
Okay. So that's true, when he really goes off the rails.
That's when he goes off the rails.
He doesn't like Bailey already. Anyway, but no, it's the guy that's above him who is first leading it. Like, okay, because there's the first guy, and Bailey was in with both of these guys. Bailey was in boot camp, FBI boot camp.
Was at Quantico with them. Yes.
Yes. When they were training. Mm-hmm. And they are all, and Bailey is still doing field work, whereas these guys have moved up in the organization, and Bailey doesn't have much use for them because they were just pencil pushers, basically.
Exactly.
I mean, Bailey is not a good guy in any of this.
No, he's not.
By the end of this, I'm just going, oh yeah, okay, all of these other guys, but Bailey is like, come on. Yeah. You went and got a relationship with this guy's ex-wife.
Yep.
Don't tell me this was.
You just ran into each other.
That's how you knew
this woman.
Yeah, come on. I mean, Bailey is getting slimier by the moment.
He's not a great guy, and it's it's just kind of interesting that, like, how do I put this? Unlike Criminal Minds, like, the show does not seem to be making excuses for Bailey.
No.
Like, Criminal Minds is forever making excuses for these characters' bad behavior, to the point where we often say, wait, does it know that they're bad people? And we're like, the show might not even know that they're bad people. Here, like, Bailey understandably, like, has some guilt. And when people find out about the stuff he's doing, they're shocked by it. And it's not coded where we, the audience, are supposed to be letting him off the hook.
No.
Whereas with Derek, everything he does, the audience is supposed to be letting him off the hook.
Yeah.
Every way it's presented on the show.
And Joe and everybody.
Joe.
All these. Yeah. Now, what happens though, here's why
By the way, the only character the show never let off the hook was Hotch, who is you should feel guilty about not spending enough time with your son. You should be haunted by your decisions.
Yes.
He's the only one who never got left off the hook for the bad stuff he was doing.
Yeah, well, and that was, and yet he's the stable, and I think that's the funny thing is
why he's the stable one, because he takes moral responsibility for his actions.
Yes, but what I would say about Profiler is that they probably mapped out their character map was more consistent.
Yeah,
and understand that they're not having necessarily major problems yet. But
yes,
in Criminal Minds. But already, like, you have something in Criminal Minds that Ed Bernero thinks is going to work.
I think so.
Because it's not the first season that we start having major problems. It's when Ed Bernero kind of lets go of the reins after about, the third season or so.
Fourth season, whenever it was.
Yeah, and when things, I think, are getting just too hard with the network, etc. But I think that here they had mapped out these characters and had more consistency with these characters.
Behavior has been there right from the start.
Yeah.
It really has.
His personal behavior It's not his work behavior. It's
no,
his personal
his work behavior is,
exemplary.
Completely exemplary. Yeah. Like you would not, he's the guy you would want on the case. 100%.
Yeah. And remember,
but
he kind
personal life wise. Oh my God.
But even his personal relationship with Sam was such that he basically, kind of forced her back in.
Oh,
he manipulated, the word I want is manipulated her.
Oh, he did. Absolutely.
Into coming back in.
Yeah. When they did a scene from the movie Manhunter.
Yeah. Right. So it's a manipulation.
It is.
And so he's always, the job is the only thing that matters to him.
Yeah.
And hence
he will
his
screw
daughter.
up all of his relationships, as you said, with the way he manipulates Sam back because he needs her. Yeah. He's willing to risk all of his relationships, right? And if this makes Sam no longer his friend, well, the job is more important.
Yeah. That's exactly
that's absolutely who he is as a character. And they've been consistent, you're right, with that right from the start. But when we find out that it's George Mason from 24's wife, I'm like, oh my God. Not George Mason, the other one. Not from 24. Oh my God, I'm blanking. That's Xander Berkeley. The fake Ray John from The Mentalist.
Yes, I know. I recognized him, and yet I don't know his name.
Yeah, it doesn't fake matter. Red John from The Mentalist.
Yeah. Fake Red John.
Fake Red John from The Mentalist. The new head of the CBI. Yeah,
and so you've got the two men, and so the main guy is explaining it to Bailey, and then he goes out and he tells them that they're going to do a look for a
fake mole hunt.
Fake mole hunt. And they're supposed to put blue stickers on whatever.
Yeah. They've put a bunch of blue stickers around the thing to be evidence, and we want you to search for them.
Yeah. And so what happens, of course, is that they find. Sam says, okay, this isn't making any sense. She talks to Bailey. It turns out Bailey's already been pulled in.
Yeah.
And questioned about being a mole.
Yeah.
They are sure that he's the mole because
it's coming out of his office and he's running the place. And as they say, there's a lot of resentment in Washington, in the FBI building, about how he essentially runs this like his personal fiefdom.
Yes. And plus, of course, he is the only one that gets those secret for your eyes only stuff about
exactly. No one else could be looking at these files. Exactly. So he is on their
and he's insisting that they never get out of his hands.
No, that he never leaves them alone in the office. He has a safe.
Yeah.
Everything.
So he's insisting, and so he walks out, and now this is the second shot at trying to
prove it. Well, because they don't know for a fact that it's him, because there are other offices that get these things, so they've had to do these mole hunts all over the place. But now that they feel like they've cleared the other ones, they're doubling down in searching and trying to prove it's Bailey.
Yeah. Now we do know that it is somebody in this office, but because that's the only one left.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so
we're the only person, they know it's someone in the office, and they know the only one with access to the files is Bailey. So what exactly can they find out? And they're like, someone else must have had to look at these files, but they check the camera and nobody else goes into the office. Nobody searches the safe. So what is happening?
Well, but I think the thing is that as they're doing this, so the black guy, no.
Oh yeah.
Who is
also,
it? George and John go in because they're going. Well, is it the coroner?
Yeah, is it the coroner?
And so they go to search the coroner's office, right?
Well, that still is part of the game, right? That's still part of the game.
No. Yeah, we're going in the game. Because this game, it's supposed to take about an hour and a half, right? Yeah. And so they go into the office. Because this was a great scene, right? And then, so George pulls open the drawer and says, pregnancy. Oh, well, she's probably looking. No. This is sent to her. He opens it up.
Yeah, because they assume that it's one of the things that the OPR put in as part of the game, right? And so they're like, is this the secret? Why would she have this book? Then they open the thing, and her husband has written a note in the front.
Yeah, so they're going, she's pregnant.
What?
And then they twig, but there's coffee. There's hot coffee in her office. She's pregnant. She's not going to drink coffee. So of course they solve that problem right away.
They find the clue. Turns out she was the mole.
She was
the fake mole. Yes,
she was the fake mole. Yeah. And of course, then they're all just jumping all over these two high-level FBI guys going, yeah, we did it in like 10 minutes, 12 minutes or something, right?
Yeah. We must be setting a record for this.
I mean, this episode goes so well and works so well.
Oh, it does. And we haven't even mentioned, by the way, it's a clip show.
Yeah.
It's a clip show. We didn't even mention that part yet because as they talk about the cases, they keep flashing back to a bunch of cases.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice touch. Lord. And so they're, but in the middle of the hunt,
then they go to the real mole hunt. Yeah. Yes. Okay. But first they find, they explain how these documents, so they start doing the real mole hunt. So they go, okay, so these documents are printed on special paper that can't be photocopied, that can't be this faxed, that can't be anything. And there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and they go hunting. And then they find in Bailey's office, they find a bunch of the
special paper you would need to copy it.
Yeah. And then, okay, so that's putting Bailey really in the frame. And the people aren't, but they're going to have to talk to everybody. And they start talking to everybody and they look at the camera, and you're right, that's where you were. They look at the camera feed and there's nothing or nobody there. And it is such that if there had been tampering in the tape, then it would have set off an alarm.
Yeah.
So the tape hasn't been tampered with. Nobody has gone in there. And so, but that means, and then as you say, the head guy gets killed.
Yes.
Looking into the thing in Bailey's office.
Yes.
Because apparently this thing can't be even photographed. These secret documents can't even be photographed.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he's looking and he gets stabbed.
Yes.
And he gets stabbed in the manner that seems like Jack. But
exactly.
At the same time, we cut to these.
Oh my God! By the way, just for the record, they need to establish that Jack isn't doing this, and the way they do it is, and this is the funniest thing that has happened on the show so far.
Yeah.
This entire episode, Jack is busy doing his income taxes.
Yeah, I know.
That's actually what Jack is doing this whole week.
Yeah, and the costume and the roses, right? We see the cost for the rose bushes.
His wigs. He pays, he deducts his wigs as a business expense.
And I'm sitting here going, what kind of a business does he tell the IRS he is in?
It's just so funny.
Yeah, he's very conscientious.
Oh, 100%. He does all of his taxes. And you see the form that he lists his mother as his dependent on his taxes. Yeah. It's all there. It's just so funny that the way they established that Jack isn't doing this is he spends the entire episode. He spends a whole day doing his taxes.
Yeah. They suspect, and then...
But Sam know it's
says
not
Jack. Jack would have done it from the front. He always does it from the front. He doesn't
stab people from behind.
Yeah. So,
so she knows it's not Jack right away.
Yeah. So then they go looking for. So now fake Red John.
Yeah.
Is running the whole thing.
Yep.
Right. And Bailey comes in at one point. He's watching that tape again. The conversation between Bailey and his wife, his ex-wife, or they're only separated. Right.
Yeah, but they're separated.
And Bailey says, well, don't keep watching this. And I mean, rightly so. Fake Red John just lays into Bailey.
Yep.
Basically, how could you do this? I'm going to get you. Right. So he's got a personal motivation. Nobody else knows about that yet. And they come up with the guy who, right at the beginning, one of the earlier episodes, was working at a university.
Yep.
Where when the house blew up, everybody.
Yeah, the fire.
Fire, right? His girlfriend got killed in the fire.
In one of the earlier fires.
And so
and he went and he joined. And so it turns out the guy, and again, they're bringing back actors. So the guy who noticed the weird stabbing implement, who did the reverse, created the reverse mold of the weird stabbing implement the guy had, right? It turns out that his girlfriend was killed in one of the earlier fires, and he quit his job and joined the VCTAF.
Yeah.
Right? And
took a job as the second coroner on the VTF because
that he was overqualified for, and he applied for the FBI for a civilian job, but he would only work at the VCTF, and in a job that he was overqualified for because Roma Mafia they already had a coroner, so they just needed an assistant coroner, and he's way more qualified. And they're like, was this all an attempt by him to come and get revenge on us for not saving his girlfriend's life? And the answer is no, that's not what it was at all.
It turned out, no, that isn't what it was. So he
just went there because he got woke to the kind of crime that was out there and thought the most important thing to do was help catch these guys. And he thought that telling them that his girlfriend got killed might, on the case they were currently working on, might help him not get the job. And so, I totally understand where he was coming from.
Yeah. So that's another dead end. Yeah. So then we see, now we have to have seen that the, our only African-American on the show.
God. He's, married to Gina Torres.
I know.
It was so great. Who's going to leave him? Who's going to leave him because he joined the FBI? Because he's working at the FBI with his law degree instead of, being
a lawyer,
just a regular lawyer. And she's like, there's any kind of law you can do. You could be a prosecutor if you think this is this important, but you don't have to be putting your life in danger. And he's like, time. I do though.
Yeah. So
he thinks this is the most important job.
Anyway, that was at the beginning. And then, so now, our fake Red John has taken over the task force to find the mole, and he's barreling in, and he goes to John Grant.
Yep.
And
we get John Grant's backstory.
So his friend, his partner, right, comes in and says, I'm a lawyer. I'm going in with
specifically, I'm his lawyer.
I'm his lawyer.
As long as you want to talk to him, I'm his lawyer.
Yeah. And John Grant says, well, I can do this by myself. No, I'm going in with you.
You're having a lawyer. What are you talking about?
So then it starts, and we get John Grant's backstory. It makes a lot of sense, actually.
It really does when you find out his backstory, which his dad is an associate of the Irish mob.
Yes. His dad's name is Patrick Doyle, or the Doyle mob. Patrick Doyle.
Yeah.
And he's in the Boston mob.
He's in the Boston mob. And his wife left him when they were young. And it's like they moved around every couple of years to avoid the father finding out.
Yeah. And he changed his name to his mother's last name.
Yeah. And that's why he's John Grant.
Yeah. Yeah. But so
I know.
That explanation.
That was a nice surprise.
Yeah,
I didn't see it coming. It makes perfect sense. It makes sense why they would suspect him. It's a good background for the character. And he's like, and no, I don't own a Porsche. I lease a Porsche. And the land my cabin is on is my grandfather's property. Right? And he left it to me when he died. So it looks like I have more money than I should. Although this show, like a lot of shows, seems to be pretending the cops don't make a lot of money. But that's a whole other conversation.
Well, maybe he's still getting paid by the Atlanta PD and not by the FBI.
He's an FBI agent now. And by the way, Atlanta PD detectives are making plenty of money.
Oh, yes. Well, we won't go into that. Let's not.
A whole other conversation.
Yeah, that's another conversation. So there's another mole, none.
Yeah, but not dealt with.
And so then he has the confrontation. No, he has the confrontation with Sam.
Yeah, he has a confrontation with Sam.
And then Sam says, this is personal to you.
Yeah.
You should be recusing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can do my job.
Well, but more importantly, like, he is right, though. The one thing he's right about is, yes, he's personal. Yes, he's too close to it. But this is a locked room mystery. The building is sealed and the stabber is in the building. Like, they got to catch him before they unlock those doors.
Yep, they have to. because
and so it's just they've got the worst possible person to try and catch him because he can only see that it's Bailey. And so they look at the tape, right? They look at the tape to try and see how someone else could have planted this stuff in Bailey's office. And they notice there is a missing edit on the tape because the blue dot on the desk goes away briefly for a second. So someone has cut in old footage briefly as they're looking through it. And when they were scanning through it at high speed, they didn't see it because they were just looking to see if anyone walked into the office. And you can do that at high speed and see no one's in, but they watch it at normal speed and they can see that this dot has disappeared and come back. And they look at the camera angle in Bailey's office and they notice that the camera angle is pointed right over his shoulder at his desk.
Except that the camera is not supposed to be able to take pictures of...
Well, no, but specifically, it doesn't have a zoom lens.
Yes.
Like, there's no way you could read from that footage because the camera doesn't have a zoom lens. None of the cameras in the office do.
Specifically, so this won't happen.
So this kind of thing can't happen. Yeah, they're being surveilled all the time. And as Bailey says about the conversation with the guy's separated wife, you get so used to being filmed all the time, you forget that, like, you just start living your life normally again. So it didn't occur to me that this private conversation I was having with my girlfriend was being recorded because I'm recorded all the time. Like, it just becomes part of your life. And they realize, and this is what Sam realizes, is that this must be what the guy discovered. This is what that was worth killing over. He must have discovered that there was a zoom lens, that someone had installed a zoom lens on the camera, and that's how the information was being found out. And so then the guy who's in charge of the cameras, who of course would also be in a position to turn off and turn the camera back on and edit footage to cover him planting that evidence in Bailey's office. And of course the guy tries to walk out of the room and is stopped and pulls his knife and tries to stab his way out of a room full of cops. And of course, the black guy, whose name we're going to have to learn at some point, John's
Nate.
friend.
His name is Nate.
Nate, thank you. Right. Call him Nate from now on.
I think it's Nate.
All right. Gets stabbed, but not fatally. He's okay. Yeah. But which allows him to have another scene with Gina Torres where he says that it doesn't matter that I got stabbed. This is what I have to do. And I hope we get some backstory on him going forward so we find out where this obsession really comes from.
Yeah. And of course he says, can't we work this thing out?
Yeah.
Can't you learn to live with this? Because as she says, this is what I'm terrified all the time. Yeah. And he said, yeah, but you could get hit by a car. It's not the same thing. You're putting yourself in a job where it is likely that you're going to be killed. This
kind of thing is going to happen. Hell, in John's safety deposit box, he's got the bullet they took out of his shoulder.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice touch.
Yes, because when they open it up and it's the lease and it's this, that, and the other thing.
He's got the lease, he's got his life insurance, and he's got the bullet they took out of his shoulder. Yeah. Which he kept as a memento, because, cop stuff.
Yeah. So, it is, and then, of course, Nate's going to be fine.
Nate's going to be fine.
They get the guy.
Okay. They've caught the guy. Yeah. Right? And we end on as close to a happy ending as you can get from a show like this, with Jack finishing off his taxes and submitting them to the government.
And he doesn't owe any money.
Via mail.
Yes. But the one thing we've also not talked about.
Yes.
Is the relationship between John and Angel.
Yeah. Oh my God. You're right. I'm really embarrassed that we didn't mention that.
I know. I'm just getting it to now.
Right. God. Angel asked John to go and do the cop talk to her at-risk youths who she teaches in the art program. And next thing we see, they're making out on the couch in the firehouse. That was a surprise.
That was a surprise, but what the hell?
No, yeah, it's fine.
That's good.
They're both pretty likable people. We're not gonna.
And if anybody could be a cop's wife, after all, she's quasi.
Yeah.
She's already a cop's husband,
Yeah, effectively,
so she might as well be a cop's wife.
Yeah, it's no problem at all. But yes, it's just complete surprise. And it is. It's kind of
and it was cute. It was cute how
cute.
they did the art room.
Yes.
Right?
No, that was a very nice scene.
And where the one kid says, but what does he call her teacher? He says, but you know what you always say, paint, don't talk. At John, right? Because he's come to talk, right?
Come to give them a little speech.
So she looks at John and she sets up an easel for him in a chair and he sits down and he paints.
Oh God, it's so nice. It's such a nice scene.
But it would of course, I mean, the thing is, what we don't see and what she refers to when they're talking before the first kiss, when they're talking, but she says, but you have such a good way with these children.
Yeah.
You know, you could do something else, like teach.
Oh, yeah.
You know, now, but cops are cops and they're always cops for a reason. He's a cop because his dad is high up in the
Irish
Boston,
mob.
Irish mob in Boston.
Irish mob. Yeah. So he can't not be a cop because he's got to make up. He's got to get back at his dad. I mean, come on.
Yeah. You know, I mean, that's all there is to it. So we don't even have like saying that his dad was in the Irish mob in Boston explains everything.
It really does. It explains so much about his personality.
One of those keys, right?
Yep. And he moved to Atlanta because that's where his mom's family was from.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why he has his grandfather's property right on the edge of town. And so he just became an Atlanta cop. Yeah. He ain't going back to Boston.
Yep.
Maybe that'll come up. We got seasons of television. We got 3 seasons left. Maybe that's going to come back up.
They're doing a very interesting job with all of this.
They really are. Again, we had no expectations for this show.
I didn't want to watch it because I had seen the first 2 episodes.
Exactly. And they're not great.
No.
But the one thing we can say about this show is it's much better than we thought it was going to be.
Yes.
And in addition to that, it's doing some genuinely interesting things.
Yes. I just wish
I'd
gotten a better actress. It's the medium.
It's killing the show. But the thing is, maybe these 2 are our favorite episodes so far because she's such an unimportant part of both episodes.
Yeah.
She's a minor part of both of these episodes.
Yeah. It's true.
Bailey is the main character. The first episode is truly an ensemble piece where she's just one of the characters and they get into no drama about her. And the character who gets most of the acting to do in that episode is George, who's fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic performance. Bailey is the main character of the second episode. And again, it's Robert Davi doing a great job and everyone else is supporting him. Everybody's supporting George in the first episode. Everybody's supporting Bailey in the second episode. She's technically the main character, but she is not the focus of either of these
2 episodes. Yeah.
She doesn't even have a lot to do in both of them.
No.
She's just there to offer some insight in both cases. And then, I mean, we didn't even mention because it's not important. They catch him by her and John getting in a classic car and driving around the road and doing a decoy.
Yeah.
And driving him up to the place where there's a roadblock. So there you go. And then, the sad thing of him taking his helmet off and it's just a guy.
Yeah.
It's just a guy in his 20s and it's sad. But the point is, she is not a central figure in either of these episodes. It's truly embracing being an ensemble in a way that I really liked and giving the other characters time to shine.
Yeah, well, and I would say it's maybe somebody started to figure out writing-wise that there is a problem and they're not going to let her go. Yeah, they're not going to ever let her go, but that there is a problem and they have to figure out how to fix that problem that is
And the answer is turning it more into Criminal Minds and making it more of an ensemble show.
Yeah.
Rather than a show with a main character and a supporting cast.
Yeah, so that we end up with Hotch and then all these, who's the linchpin in Bailey.
Yeah.
So Bailey's the linchpin and then everybody else.
We have our Garcia. And we have our Garcia, and we have our Derek Morgan, except a much better person.
Oh, a much, much better person. Well, partly because...
unquestionably better person.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess that makes her Spencer Reed. What does that make her? She ain't Gideon.
Nope, she's Spencer Reed.
I guess she's Spencer Reed. Oh, my God.
And there is no Gideon.
we're probably going to know this by the time this episode goes up, but the internet went nuts today because Matt Gubler did an interview somewhere. I haven't seen where from yet. Where apparently someone asked him about his upcoming projects, and he said he shot an episode of Criminal Minds. So that the internet exploded this morning.
Oh,
because
geez.
someone tracked down an interview that suggests he's back on Criminal Minds. Now, he said he shot, I read the text, and apparently he said he shot an episode of Criminal Minds. So is he back? Is Spencer Reid back? Or did the thing that we want to have most happen, and he directed a new episode of Criminal Minds?
Yeah, well, that would be interesting. Let's see what Deadline has to say.
Yeah, go look for that.
Okay.
But yeah, over the season, like, it had a bad pilot, and I'm happy to say that Profiler had a bad pilot. It did not start out as a great show in the first couple of episodes. It has developed into something really interesting that's at its core is just a really good, solid show. Like, it just is now.
It has, yeah. For sure.
I'm very interested to see where it goes next, because we are very happy with what this show is turning into. And I have a lot of confidence in it. And again, Jack's in the opening credits. I watched for it.
Yes, I know, watching for it
Jack too. In the opening credits. So
haven't gone back to look and see if it's
in the earlier ones, but it says "and Jack" every week, and I'm like, okay. Again, not the titles, but the credits that play at the start of the episode where it shows this week's guest stars.
Yeah.
It says "and Jack." So yeah, whoever is playing this character, right, is not taking a credit so that people like can't go look up who's playing Jack. And that is amazing. Or they're concealing the fact that it's A. Martinez, which I'm now ready to say I'm convinced it's not now that I've noticed the "and Jack" credit.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, like this is an interesting, like, there's something so absurd about him doing his taxes that I'm just not going to get over.
I know.
I'm just not going to get over that for a while. It's just so absurd that he spends the episode doing his taxes. Oh God. And where is this? And I'm just going to say it because I theorized he must be in law enforcement. And I think there's,
we don't disagree. I don't disagree with you
because of the access he has. He must be. And I mean, that's part of the reason maybe you thought, and maybe it's A. Martinez, maybe it's Nick. But at the same time, where is he getting all of this? He's got so much money. Like, he has so much money. Where is he getting all of this money? Because it costs a lot to do what he does, to be flying around all of the time, committing crimes and covering things up. He has fundamentally, like, he seems to have unlimited resources. And I need to know how. I mean, that's the thing that most likely they can explain him not being a cop is when you've got unlimited resources, you don't even need to be a cop. You can just get whatever you want. But where is this money coming from? That's the thing I need explained. All right, so
Screen Rant.
Do they have something to say about Matt Gubler?
Criminal Minds actor Matthew Gray Gubler has confirmed his return to the show in a new interview. Known for his blah 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 blah. The actor has maintained his in a recent interview with ANSA.
No idea what that is.
Neither do I.
Okay.
To discuss his work. As an author and illustrator, he briefly mentions he shot a new episode of Criminal Minds. It's worth noting he could mean he returned as a director.
Yeah. Which is what we want.
What he said is
we badly want him.
Yes. I shot a new episode of Criminal Minds. I'm working on a film about Halloween, and I'm doing shows, comedies, and theater around America.
Okay.
Okay.
Again, this episode of television. First off, we would love to have some info about this, but Breen's not going to hear this till February, and we're watching the episodes. So, like, it's not we're not really in a position to have him give us a shout out about this.
No, I know, but I'm okay. See,
we're very excited by the prospect of Matt Gubler coming back. We want him to direct a new episode, and we don't know whether we know Matt Gubler is back. We don't know if Spencer Reid is back. And that's the key part.
Yeah.
And given how our feelings about him as a director, that could be.
We'd be happy. Yeah.
We'd be very happy if he were to come back and bring us his dream-like classic horror influenced work to Criminal Minds, to a very different version of Criminal Minds, but still Criminal Minds. Okay, so I guess that's that. This time we didn't skip an entire plot line from an episode.
No,
but
we almost
went extra
did.
length. We almost did.
Yeah.
But we went extra length just because there was a lot to talk about this week.
Yes, there was.
There really was.
Yeah.
They're doing really good work here, and I'm very excited as we ramp up towards the end of the season, because we only have 2 weeks more before the end of the year, because this is 2021, right? We're watching next week, and the week after that is episode 22 and, season in review. So I'm pretty excited. And then we'll figure out what we're watching between seasons, because normally we're like, oh, we'll go to the celebrities and watch a movie they were in, or something thematically similar. But Ali Walker never made any movies is the thing. At least
so Robert Davi.
Maybe we find some Robert Davi movies that are similar to this. Maybe watch Maniac Cop 3. We're not watching Maniac Cop 3, just FYI. Although who knows, by the season 3, season 4 break, maybe we will have resorted to watching Maniac Cop 3.
Yeah. We'll see.
Watch Die Hard again. And so take an excuse to watch Die Hard.
Yes, actually, The Equalizer did a quasi Die Hard episode last night.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Way to go.
Well, it's Christmas, right? Got to do a Die Hard episode.
Yeah. What if the Marvel show did a Die Hard Christmas episode? People want their Die Hard episodes at Christmas. That's just how it works.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to see you back here next week for that. But for now, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if there's any profiling related fiction you'd like us to check out, please drop us a line at profilingcriminalminds@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. If you were listening on an app or podcatcher or watching this on YouTube, rate, review, and subscribe to it. That's how people find out about the show. We're going to see you back here next week as we close in on the end of season 1 of Profiler. But until then, I'll say that's right. Au revoir.
And have a good week.